Well, welcome back to the Suburban Black Girl Podcast. This is episode 31. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to Don Julio and Simply Lemonade.
Listen.
Is it Don Julio?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, period.
Mine's Tito's, but
Oh, okay. Cheers to DJ and Tito's.
yes, I'm a Tito's girl. Blake likes tequila and a little Henny.
No, other way around. I like Henny.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Tequila when necessary.
That's true. That's true. I'll give
Or
you that.
Douce. I just,
Okay, do say.
prefer the yak, as they say.
Please stop. I like tequila too. It's just, the older I'm getting, I'm like, Tito's, she's just my go-to girl. She just gets me right where I need to be really quickly.
No, I feel like the older I'm getting, the cognac strong gets me there quicker. And the tequila hangovers are, I can't anymore.
Yeah, it's getting worse. And I feel like when I do drink tequila when I'm out, I'm like, I feel more tired. It's making me more tired when I'm
While
out.
drinking it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe because I'm not like, taking as many shots or like driving the boat.
I just know the next day I do not feel
well.
Yeah. And that's
Understood.
why I have fully committed to the cognac.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, today's topic, it actually came from, someone that watches and listens to our podcast, which please guys, like if there's any topics that you want us to discuss, like email us, DM us, comment, because we love to hear what you guys would like us to talk about. So this topic has really been sitting in our inbox for a minute, and I'm glad we're discussing it today.
Yeah.
And the topic is, as a suburban Black girl, dating within your socioeconomic background. And, kind of what we think about that. So you ready
Here
to
we
dig
go.
in?
Here we go. The long-awaited topic.
All righty. So what does dating within your social class mean in today's world? And how would you define it?
So, socio comes from social, and it includes factors like education level, occupation, prestige of job, cultural background, social networks and connections, access to opportunities or institutions. Whereas economic refers to financial and material aspects such as income, wealth, property ownership, access to resources like healthcare and housing. So when you put them together, socioeconomic class is a way of categorizing people based on both their economic status and their social standing. Not just how much money they have, but also how connected, respected, or educated they are within society.
Fair.
Well, when you put it like that, yeah, I would say it's definitely twofold. It's the financial aspect of how much money you make, how much money you have, whatever. But then it's also basically your social currency, right? Like who you know, your education, so on and so forth. So yeah, I would say it's quite literally twofold for that reason. In today's world, I think it literally means, do you have a good job and how much money do you make at that job?
Right.
What kind of house can you afford? What kind of car can you drive? What kind of clothes can you buy? What kind of restaurants can you afford to eat at? But then also, where did you go to college? How educated are you? What type of circles do you run? Like in today's world, I think it means what type of circles do you run in? Who do you know? Who is your network? Who, are your contacts? That can sort of potentially like take you to the next level or whatever it is. So I think that kind of is what it means in today's world.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, what does your portfolio resume really look like, right? You know what I mean? Like
literally, what is your like social resume?
Yeah, literally like overall, like show me. No, I think you said it perfectly okay. Like I totally agree with that. Which is why I'm excited to just dig into this more.
Yeah. I think it's also just like, what type of places do you frequent? Like what is your lifestyle?
Right.
I think that's what it means in today's world. Like, do you quite frankly, do you go to LA Fitness or Planet Fitness or do you go to Equinox? Like, I think that's also like literally what it means in today's world. And then I think there's trickle effects off of that, right? Because if you go to Equinox, you might run into or start a casual conversation with somebody who is another business person
Yeah.
or whatever. And then you make that connection, and that's where networking happens, and da da da. You know, you are who you hang around,
Right.
or it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Right.
Literally is what can be the make it or break it of like how you get ahead in life
Yeah.
or how you succeed
For
in
sure.
life. For me, like even my current job, for me, it quite literally, there was like 500 people plus that applied. And for me, it quite literally was because I knew somebody that knew somebody that worked there. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? One interaction can change the course of your life just based off of the people that you have access to versus not.
Right.
So it's interesting.
Right. Very well said. I think my next question for you is, as a suburban Black girl, do you ever feel like you were pressured to maybe talk to someone that, is kind of within your social economic background of what you grew up in or around?
Oh, pressured. No. I don't think I've ever been pressured to date anyone. It was totally up to me.
Period.
My poor decisions were up to me. Um, no, I don't think I ever felt pressured. I think there were certain preferences that I maybe had based off of experiences that I had had previously, but I don't think I ever felt pressure. Have you?
I I think I felt pressure from other people outside of my parents or outside of my family. I felt like there have been people, that are within like, my parents' circle or friends that have made me feel as though because, the lifestyle or what my parents did for me, it was always going to be like, I don't know what man's going to be able to keep up with that. Ashley's going to have to marry rich. Ashley's going to have to marry this. And my dad will always be like, no, she doesn't. Like, she just needs to marry a man that loves and respects her and honors her, right?
Mm,
And so I felt like the pressure for me came from other people. But that's not pressure I've ever felt from, my parents or even how I feel. I date for love, honestly, and
mm-hmm,
respect. I've never dated for just money alone.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think definitely for like outside pressure for sure. But I've never let it get to me. It's just kind of like a,
Mm.
y'all think I'm just like materialistic, but I'm actually not.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't think I've ever felt pressure, but I've definitely gotten a comment like that where it's like, God bless the man that ends up with her.
Child, they be like, I'm like, anyway, we be the most easygoing. Little do you know. Does love really conquer all? Or do class and lifestyle differences eventually show up in the relationship?
I think they eventually show up,
For sure.
um, unfortunately. And I feel like the reason why I was like somewhat hesitant to even really have this conversation is because I think it can be easy to, I don't know, I don't want to say come off out of touch or superficial or whatever, but I think the actual problem for me, and I think similar for you, is if you have a good job now and you can provide certain things for yourself, or if you grew up a certain way and you're just accustomed to doing certain things or going certain places, right? And you date someone that isn't or can't do those things, neither one of us is the type of person to turn our nose up and be like,
Right.
yeah, no, just it's not going to work. It's more, we'll still give that person a chance. But the reason why it still doesn't work is because you then end up having to hide certain parts of yourself because you don't want to
Mm.
make that person feel inadequate.
Right.
And so for me, that's why it's not feasible, is because not because I would ever look down on somebody for not being able to afford something or not being able to do something that I can do, but because I would
Shrink yourself a bit.
shrink myself or hide certain things that I enjoy doing or certain things that I want to do or even
Yeah.
certain goals that I have or even certain past experiences that I've had because you don't want to make that person feel insecure or inadequate, especially a man.
Yeah.
You know, you can have all, I feel like a lot of men are just, they all have egos, right? Even the best of them. And regardless, if it's a man, woman, whatever, you don't want to make anybody feel less than,
Right.
regardless, whether it's a friendship, relationship, whatever it is, a coworker, you never want to make anybody feel less than. And so for me, I think that's why it would not be feasible, not because I don't see potential in that person for them to potentially, grow within their career or their socioeconomic status, but more so the requirement. And maybe it's not a requirement, but for me, it's just an internal feeling of like, I can't fully be myself because I don't
Exactly.
want to make you feel inadequate.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And, for me, I definitely think we have to have some type of similarities when
Mhm.
it comes to maybe like, the things that we're affiliated with or associated with. Because I feel like if not, then it's like we truly have nothing in common. And the things that I'm involved in are like, you just have no interest in. So then it's kind of like I'm showing up
Mhm.
to these events or these groups or doing this thing by myself because you have no connection to it. You have no affiliation with it and you do not like it.
Mhm.
And you rather do God knows what.
Yeah.
But I do agree you have to have some type of, you have to have some type of similarities with that or
Mhm.
be open to it, right?
Mhm.
I believe in like having a balance where it's kind of like, I have my connections and maybe my network and these things, and you have something different, but together it's kind of like we have the best of both worlds so that when we come together, it's kind of like you got these perks, I got these perks, I know
Mhm.
this circle, like those type of things. But even down to something as minor as there was a guy I really liked that I was dating, but he didn't enjoy like nice restaurants, fine dining, or anything. And for me, like that is something I enjoy doing, whether I'm with a man, a family member, or just by myself or a girls' night.
Mhm.
And, for me, he was just so big on like, you just like these restaurants that are just like so like aesthetic and vibey. Like, I just want to go somewhere that has good food. I'm like, I love good food too, but also I like a vibe, like an overall
Mhm.
experience, a dining experience.
Mhm.
So honestly, once he kind of brought that up when we were at a very like popular restaurant here that kind of provides that overall dining vibe experience,
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, we ain't gonna work
Yeah.
because this is just who I am and it's not in you, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But something as minor as that, as just as far as taste, is so important to me.
Mhm.
And it's not something like, hey, meet me right where I'm at, but be at least open to it or interested in it. But when you're just kind of like cold shoulder, it just makes me realize like, okay, well, if you don't like this, you probably won't want to be, a part of my like, I don't know, certain organization or club I'm a part of, or
Yeah.
maybe aspire to be a part of one day.
Mhm.
So totally agree on that.
Yeah, it's such a nuanced conversation. And I think as you grow and evolve, you really start to figure out like what the give and take is and what
Yeah.
really matters. Because, and again, the part of the reason why I was hesitant to have this conversation is because it's just like, I don't even want to come off or act like I grew up so privileged or whatever.
Of course
I
not.
was privileged in the fact that I had single mother that worked hard. And even when she really did not have it, she never let me feel like she had it.
Mm,
And because she was a single mother, she worked really, 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 really hard. And I think one of her biggest goals was obviously to make sure that I had a better life than her, but she also wanted to make sure that I just experienced things.
yeah.
And so, like, my mom would always bring me to work with her. I would be a
Mm.
child going to her work dinners, like,
Oh, I love it.
work trips, whatever. Like, I went to Miami with her for a work trip. I went to London and Paris with her for a work trip. And
Wow.
so, even though it was not an experience, like I wouldn't describe it as coming from money. I didn't. My mom was a single mother and my father was incarcerated, you know? Um, but I was blessed enough to have a mom that worked hard
Right.
and wanted to give me those experiences. And now, fortunately or unfortunately, I grew up probably eating at restaurants that kids were not typically at, or
Right.
like going on vacations or experiencing things or whatever that people my age were not.
Right.
And because she worked really, really hard on that, then when she didn't have it, eventually she did have it. And then
Mm-hmm.
I got more and more experiences. And so it's like, and this is why for it's like the should people date within their socioeconomic class or not, that's up to the person.
Right.
And I can only speak for myself. But for me, it's like if I was 8, 9, 10 years old and to freaking 21, 22, whatever, I'm accustomed to going to certain places, doing certain things, having certain experiences. And then when we talk about socioeconomic and the socio part of that is education, then I go to college, I get my undergrad and I get a master's degree. So now I'm educated. And then I start working and I work my way up in the workforce. And now I can do certain things for myself. I go on trips with my friends. We go out and we, have nice dining experiences ourselves. Right. It's like, okay, if starting from adolescence, those experiences with my mom to now, I can do certain things for myself. This is the majority of my life we're talking about now at this point. How can me personally, how would it work for me to really date someone that can't do those things? I think for me, again, it would be hard because it would require me to hide certain parts of myself and it just doesn't make sense. But I don't want to say it's right or wrong to do. It could very well be doable for some people. For me, it's just like, I feel like I've experienced so many things and am accustomed to doing certain things for so long that I don't think it would just really be feasible or make sense. But what I will say that later in my 20s, and into my adulthood, I've had to learn what the happy medium is, right? Because my mom worked her ass off and I got to experience certain things. And of course, you want a man that can do those things. And I feel like that's typically what I would lean towards, right? But then there were other things that they were lacking. Mm-hmm. And then, previously, I've been open to people that couldn't do certain things, but that didn't work either. And so I just feel like in general, it's just such a give and take and finding the balance of what's going to work for you. Yeah. And I feel like lucky to have that now because it's just like, I've been in situations where I was dating someone, they took me to Vegas, we were staying in a very nice hotel. We, went to a very nice dinner in Vegas where, there's a humongous waterfall and there's a show every 10 minutes. And that was the most boring dinner I've ever had in my life and the most alone I felt. Yeah. Because for some people, their money, their work, whatever, it becomes their full identity and they're not emotionally available. They're really not fun.
Let's be so honest.
Yeah. And I remember even later that night, we literally got basically a section for ourselves in a club in Vegas. And it's just like, in my current relationship, I've had more fun sitting at home playing cards than I did with the extravagant situations, And so that's why it's such an interesting and nuanced conversation because it's like you can absolutely grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth and come from money and then restrict yourself to only dating people at that level, at that status, and still not feel fulfilled. It's such an interesting conversation to me because it
can go so many different directions.
Yeah. And I feel like when people talk about it, it's very black and white and it's like, material things are nothing. Like, don't date for money. Or it's like, date for love or whatever. And it's so much more complicated than that. And I feel like people either settle for one or the other. Some people choose love and then they don't feel led or supported or safe financially, whatever. And then some people choose money and they feel empty inside, they feel lonely, but they have all the bags and shoes and clothes in the world. And I feel like everything you see on the internet is like one way or the other.
For sure. You don't really see a mix.
Yeah. And I feel like for me, when I was very celibate for that long period of time and even just completely stopped dating, it was like I don't want to say the best of both worlds, but I wanted that middle ground for myself. And I said, if I have to wait a long period of time to have that, then I'm happy waiting. Mm-hmm. Because to me, either end of the spectrum would have been settling. So it's a very complicated conversation.
No, and it truly is. It truly is. And I think just given our backgrounds, you know, it does kind of make you question and like, am I settling, right? In certain ways. I definitely think the whole, like my family's the same way. Where it's kind of like they come from humble beginnings and my parents are first generational wealth. So it's like for me, it's kind of like I would never, look down on a man that is trying to just get it and make it happen. Because like when my parents met, my dad didn't have shit.
Mm-hmm.
But, where he is today, it's kind of like, right, don't ever like kick a man while he's down. And so for me, that's why I'm not so big on the whole, like, he has to have social, he has to be in a certain like status and class and have all this money.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, as long as you're just working towards that, I'm totally fine with that because it's more to life than just obviously those type of things, right? Those exterior things. And it makes me sad, just like in society and social media, the things that are praised. And I feel like a lot of these people, when you really hear their backstories, they come from like nothing or broken homes or just depression and not feeling loved or wanted. And so it's kind of like everyone's chasing something they've never had. And it's like, you get it. Like we're just talking about Lotto's conversation today. She's talking about being rich is boring.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, right, because so many of these rappers and athletes finally make it and they feel empty because it's like, exactly, you think that that's more than life and that's everything. And sadly, the truth is it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think the biggest thing is just finding the common ground because there's more to life than just status and all that type. It's just like, who makes you feel loved and wanted and needed? And, when you're feeling down, like who's truly there for you? That's stuff that just money cannot buy or any status, any pull you have, like none of that can buy that.
Mm-hmm.
So
I honestly think for me, that's the bigger part of it, not the financial piece. It's just like, if we're not on the same page mentally,
right.
intelligence wise, if you do not stimulate my brain, if we can't have like deep conversations, if we can't have like intellectual conversations, if you can't give me a different perspective, that completely alters my brain chemistry that I'm not thinking of, it's just like, yeah, I'm not interested in that. And I think that's important too. And that's not even just relationships, that's friends. Like, do you get around a bunch of girls and all they're talking about is what's on the Shade Room and the Kardashians and whatever? Or are people talking about, their 401k, their stocks, their side hustles, their career goals, whatever, their, spirituality, bettering themselves, their mental and emotional and physical health? Like, this conversation isn't even just about dating. It's like, period, your relationships, period.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, and we've had a couple of episodes about friendships too, and friendship breakups and becoming misaligned. And I feel like that's a part of it too, is just the mindset, the education piece, whatever. It's just the interests, the types of things you want to do, the places you frequent. It's like, sometimes friendships also don't work out for that reason too, because it's just we've been in situations where, it's not necessarily hip hop or R&B playing, but it's like, enjoy the moment, catch the vibe, embrace a different type of music, embrace a different music from a different type of culture or whatever. And it's just like, we've been at dinners where it's just like, people are like, oh, this music is trash, like, and they just want to hear freaking Ratchet driving the boat constantly, which we're all for in the right moments, but it's also like, open your mind, broaden your horizons.
Yes.
Like, be open to something.
Absolutely.
I know Drake is very controversial, but what I will say he had a point with is when he came out with that music that was straight house.
Yeah.
Right? And the Black community really did not understand it. No. And it's just like, but when you go to places like the south of France and you do your Euro summers, you understand that's the vibe.
Come on.
You know,
none of our music
exactly. Like, it's literally like, broaden your horizons.
Yeah.
And again, like, it's just, you very well might think somebody is a great person. You might like them. You might love them. But it's like, you might have this mindset that like, you're open to trying new foods, going new places, and you might date someone that literally is content in their life, standing on a section in Houston, Texas, driving the boat every weekend, listening to the same music. And you're not going to align.
Exactly.
And I feel like it has just this negative kind of connotation behind it that like you're superficial or whatever for not wanting to date someone like that. But it's just like, if that person has no interest, in learning about other things and traveling and whatever, like you're just misaligned.
Yeah. Facts.
And if the question for this episode is, should you, date within your socioeconomic status? Like, yeah. And it's not even about having money, because some of these people drop in 5 bottles in one night in the club in Houston, have money, but they don't, that's what they want to spend it on in Houston, Texas. And they don't want to spend it going to the south of France, going to Italy, going to wherever, to really.
Just different priorities.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it's not just the economic piece, it's the socio piece.
Yeah. How do you think class shows up in everyday dating beyond income? Like how he may handle his money, planning his future, communication, or how he may define success?
I think when it comes to like how someone handles their money or how they define success, right? Like somebody might define success literally if they can go buy 5 chains, if they can go to the Galleria and buy some Amiri and some Gucci sneakers. Whereas sometimes if you have a different education on economics or the economy, whatever it is, you are like, okay, I'm not going to spend money on these things. I'm going to invest it.
Right.
I'm going to put it into a high yield savings account. I'm not going to I'm not going to rent the high rise that's $5,000 a month. I'm going to save to buy a home for something that I can eventually own. I'm going to pay off my car instead of, constantly trying to have the hottest, newest thing, whatever. So, and I think that's a thing. I think regardless, we all can get caught up in, and it's very easy, especially in this country, because everything is so driven by capitalism. Is just honestly like making financially irresponsible decisions to appear a certain way, or to appear a certain way to society, but appear a certain way to white people. And I think even you could be the most woke person and still like just not realize it,
Yeah.
And so you can be a Black person that comes from nothing and comes up on some money, or you could be a Black person that maybe has generational wealth and still not make the most financially sound decisions just based off of how you want to, appear
Right.
to be. So regardless, anyways, to answer the question, yeah, I think it can, decision making can, I think can be different depending. Because, for me, for example, like when COVID started and I was living in New York, I started thinking about, wow, I could have such a better quality of life not living in New York City. And at the time I probably was like 24, 25. I don't remember how old I was. And I was like 25, I think, or I was about to be 25, I think. And I was like, I want to buy a home, and like, maybe I can do that in Texas and da da da. And I started talking to a financial advisor, and I started saving money with them, and they started, investing that money for me and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, literally, depending on the person that you're talking to, it can sound like gibberish and almost like you're bragging, or like somebody can be like, yeah, I did the same, or da da da. So it's stuff like that. It's hard. It's like, I'm not looking down on somebody who's not doing those things.
Yeah.
But again, it's hard because you feel like you have to shrink yourself because you sound like you're bragging.
For sure.
When you talk about stuff like that. So.
No, definitely. Definitely. I think there have been many times where I've had to feel like I've kind of have shrunk myself around a man, sadly, especially when I was younger, because of, the things that I've achieved and And then, it just turned to like bite me in the ass. That's why I was like, no, I had to learn to just, date a man that accepts me for who I am and is willing to work with that. But it's kind of like, I can't change that I'm a hard worker. You know, that I like nice things, that I, you know, come from a stable background. Like those are things I can't change. It's just like this is who I am.
You know what's something that people probably don't even think about, right? Because everybody thinks about the superficial things, like the car you drive, the places that you frequent, you know, the restaurants you want to go to, the type of clothes you wear, blah, blah, blah. But to me, what's even more important is like, I like to get my groceries from Whole Foods. I like to buy organic produce. Meats especially skeeves me out. So I really like, I need all the non-GMO, all the organic, all the no hormone, whatever. Like, and yeah, I like to go to Whole Foods. And something as simple as that, whereas somebody could be happy going to, I don't even know, like there's just certain places
Kroger?
but I'm talking about even below Kroger. Like there's just,
Okay, I mean, like Aldi.
well, to me, packaged food is packaged food. I'll get that from Dollar Tree or whatever. If it's processed, it's processed. But as far as like produce and poultry,
Yeah,
as far as
poultry.
protein and poultry and stuff, for me, I like to go to Whole Foods. But even like getting my vitamins and stuff like that, it's just those are things that are like literally health.
Yeah.
Whereas some people might be fine buying the chicken that's pumped with a ton of hormones and whatever else. And you might be misaligned on that because somebody might be like, food is food or whatever. But
Right.
like to me,
It's
that
really
type of
not.
stuff matters.
Yeah, it's like you trying to die, you trying to get cancer, have health
Yeah.
problems. No.
Yeah. And like, I feel like that's the type of stuff that just like flies under the radar because everybody, when this conversation comes up, just thinks of, oh, I want to go to Steak 48, not the Cheesecake Factory. And it's like, when you actually think about your lifestyle, it is so much deeper than that, you know,
Right.
your first couple dates.
Yeah.
It's literally, how are you taking care of your body and your health? Because somebody might think that your gym classes are a waste of money.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, baby.
Or somebody might think that your massages are a waste of money.
Right.
But in reality, if your muscles are tight, that might create other issues, you know, other health issues further along. So it's just, I feel like it's those things too that no one talks about.
No, it's very true. Because to us, it's the little things, but to someone else, they're like, what?
Yeah.
We could be putting that money somewhere else. It's like, well, this is a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Need that.
Yeah. And I even talk about that all the time. I was just complaining because I went to Whole Foods and I'm like, I went in there for vitamins. How did I spend $80? And it was like, well, you spend that going out to eat one time.
That's true. Right.
So it's, again, differences in priorities because
Come on.
somebody might be happy to spend $300 on a bottle of Casamigos going to the club. But like, if you want to spend $300 on vitamins, they'd be like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're looking at them like, what is wrong with you spending $300 on a bottle of Casamigos? So
Yeah. That was me a few years ago. I was spending that money on bottles.
yeah.
But yeah, no, it's very true. Like priorities, right? It's definitely like priorities. Oh, this is a good question. Do you think Black women with degrees and professional careers are expected to settle more than their non-Black counterparts?
I think it depends who you ask. I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, Black women are the most unmarried gender and race and da-da-da. And I told you that conversation I had with someone who shall not be named. And he basically told me I would have to lower my standards.
Right.
I think it's hard for Black women because we're becoming the most educated, we're becoming the most educated demographic. And I think it's harder for Black women because a lot of Black women want to marry a Black man.
Of course.
And then you have to deal with the fact that Black men maybe are not, we're outpacing them as far as education. You add in the factor of how many Black men want to date outside their race. You add in the factor of how many Black men are simply freaking incarcerated.
The children play a factor too, the ones that have children.
Yeah. And then you can't even add in the superficial factors of like wanting somebody who's handsome and over 6 feet.
Right.
And so to answer the question, like some people, yeah, it's like, well, if that's what you want, the expectation is you're going to have to give somewhere.
Right.
But I think that's what's hard dating as a Black woman is finding your equal in a Black man in
Right.
all areas.
Yeah.
It's Hunger Games.
No, for sure. And I'm realizing like I have some friends that, to be honest with you, are successful women and they're willing to date a man that makes less than them, but because he's attractive and he's 6'3" and he's tatted and he's fit, that's enough because he has other things. So it's like I have those friends that are willing to kind of be the breadwinner in their relationship or in their marriage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so that is a form of settling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, well, it depends on like what you're looking for. But I think as, we get older and it's kind of like you're over 30 and you're a Black woman and, you're obviously, we've achieved a certain amount of things. I think even me having like a mentor or older Black woman in my life, I've seen their expectations of what they want in a man change as they get older because you're starting to realize like some of those things that you really want, it's becoming harder to achieve or have. So as you're getting older, you're like, I can accept a kid or two. I can accept if he's maybe makes less than me. I can accept the fact that he's 5'8" and not 6'3".
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it's still kind of a form of settling. But then again, I hate saying the word settling because it's like no one is perfect. Even us as women, whether you're a man or a woman, none of us are perfect. And yes, in certain ways, there are things that we don't have. So is it still a form of settling? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think everyone's opinion on that is different. But I still have hope for our Black men, always, always. I'm
Mm-hmm.
open to dating other races if that's something I would have to do in the future. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not a preference personally at this time. No.
Mm-hmm. I saw this TikTok yesterday where this girl was talking about how like she was never taught how to date as a Black woman. Like,
Hmm.
because for us, it's always focus on your education, focus on da, 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 focus on school,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And it's like, quite frankly, like, I feel like a lot of our white counterparts are taught. They're taught how to
Come
date. They're
on.
taught what to look for in a
Right.
man. They're, taught to want marriage and expect that and expect to be provided for and da da
Hmm.
da. And we're taught independence, you
Very true.
know?
Right. We are taught different things.
I mean, and kind of rightfully so.
Yeah.
But then it's also like at what cost? Because then then a lot of Black women maybe have success or they're on their way to success and have no clue how to navigate the dating landscape or what expectations to have or what standards to have and what's realistic. And yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And that's even something that I had to start pulling myself away from as being this working, successful boss bitch, quote unquote, because I'm like, the more I started to dig myself in the work and the hustle, I felt like I personally was taking away from my femininity. And I felt like I was more in my masculine energy because I'm just like, get into the money, hustle, 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 don't sleep. And it's to the point where it's like I literally had no time for nothing else but to just kind of be in that mode. And I'm like, that's a part of me, but that's not all of me. And so I had to start pulling back on that. And sometimes I think as Black women, we're so, like you said, taught to be independent and, we're such go getters and successful. But at the same time, it's like, don't lose sight of everything that you want versus just having that career. Because if you're just like focused on that career, I feel like you're not really like looking around.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I've
Mm-hmm.
seen older Black women close to me do that. And, here they are, 35 plus, and kind of like now realizing this career and this money and success is not worth everything. And now it's kind of like they want the man and the children possibly. And it's so harder because you kind of just had your head down for so long just working.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something I have to remind myself. Like, yes, work hard, but don't get off the track of just still wanting it all. And that's something that my parents have continued to push me like, want it all. You can have it all. Don't feel like you can only have this. You can have it all. But it's just, it's a different pace. It's a different pace.
Yeah, and I was just having this conversation how a lot of Black women, if they want to get married, are going to have to be open to dating outside their race.
Yeah, I hate that. Yeah.
Unfortunately, like if
I
you
hate
want
that.
someone who is a good person, a loyal person, is going to respect you and is on your level mentally, emotionally, financially, they might not be Black. It kind of is what it is with that.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't want them to have kids. Like you're putting yourself down to the 0.000 something percent.
Shit.
Especially if you want them to be over 6 feet.
Yeah.
Over 6 feet straight, make 6 figures, unmarried, no children, like truly the Hunger Games.
Yeah, girl, good luck. Have you ever felt like you were labeled as bougie or like you are better than someone else for expecting certain standards in a relationship?
I don't actually think I've been called bougie by a man. I think I've actually mostly been called bougie by women. I don't think I've ever been called bougie in a dating situation.
You're
I think it's
right.
more been like whatever, casual friendship
Mm-hmm.
dynamics, whatever. But I don't actually think I've been called bougie in a dating situation. Yeah, I don't think I have actually.
That's a good point. Because I feel like if anything, they're like, I like the way you are. It's
I
like,
honestly
huh?
think they know what it is, like the second they approach you.
Yeah.
So I don't think any time I've ever been called bougie was in that scenario. No.
Because you don't have to speak at all. They can just tell by the way you carry yourself for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
For sure. Sorry, this one's funny.
Evil laugh.
Can a college educated, career driven woman be truly compatible with a man who didn't go to college but is emotionally supportive and hardworking?
Yeah. There's a lot of successful people that didn't go to college. That doesn't mean you're not smart or intelligent or educated in other ways. Like you can read books, watch YouTube videos, whatever. You can be self-taught in many ways and, you know, be educated in that way and be successful and be a successful like entrepreneur without a college degree. So I don't see why not.
I think when I read that question, I read it like he's hardworking, but maybe he's an Amazon driver.
Oh.
And he's just like, he's that because that is hardworking, right? Or maybe he's, I don't know, he works at the cashier as a cashier at KFC.
Oh. Wait, what was the question again?
Like,
Oh, I didn't. Not me being extra positive. I didn't interpret it that way.
Because I feel like no, that's how I'm gonna spin it because that's more of like that oxymoron. It's like right, okay. So, can a college-educated, career-driven woman be truly compatible with a man who didn't go to college but is emotionally supportive and a blue-collar worker?
They could be compatible
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, but as far as the things that she likes to do and the places she likes to frequent, they
Mhm.
might not be. But that's probably going to be up to her to decide how much that affects her or bothers her or matters, quite frankly. Because there might be
Yeah.
women out there that don't care. They might just pay for them both.
Yeah, they're out there. Sugar mamas do
exactly.
exist.
So I think that fully depends on the person. But then also I think it depends on the man too, because a lot of times that's threatening to a man when a woman makes more money,
Mm-hmm.
especially if, well, I guess that doesn't really apply in this question because this is saying that, you know, he is emotionally available and supportive. But I think it applies in the situations where the man brings nothing to the table but money.
Yeah.
Or they feel inadequate themselves or they're insecure within themselves. And then what does the woman need them for when she makes more money than him? I think that's when they start to feel insecure. And we talked in the last episode or the episode before that, I don't even remember, about how dating an insecure man is just a setup.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if he's secure within himself, emotionally available, and a hard worker, and the woman, you know, that works for her, then yeah, I think it could work.
Huh.
The problem is
know.
when the man makes less money, but he's, you know, has this just red pill mentality where like the woman has to submit to him
Yeah,
and da 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 da.
a lot.
It's like, submit to what?
That's what I'm saying. It makes it a little hard. I don't have the experience in that, so it's hard for me to say, is it true or is it not? But I would assume it would just be quite difficult. I feel like maybe at first it would be like, okay, but eventually I feel like the woman would get tired or the man would feel inadequate, or just like not as equal or aligned.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I just feel like eventually something like that just like would not work out. I don't see that being a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
But it happens, right?
Yeah. It works for some people. That's why I say it depends on the woman and it depends on the man.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I would assume if, that's the type of man, then he's probably like a stay-at-home dad type of vibe. So maybe I'm assuming he's taking care of, the household things,
But
taking
maybe,
care of
okay,
cooking, the
what about
cleaning, the
someone like a
kids.
Candy and Todd?
But I feel like with Todd, there's other things that he does to help support her and her businesses and whatnot from what I've like I'm not really too involved in the show, but it seems like he does support and help her in ways that she needs to kind of just like continue to provide and like run her businesses and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, or it just reminded me of like Kris Jenner and Corey Gamble.
Child.
Like you can just tell he's just there. Like she just
Who
likes him
knows
as
what that's
support.
about?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but like that's a good question too, because it's like, at what point as a woman does it literally not matter when you have like fuck you money like her
Yeah.
and you literally just want companionship at that point?
True. And that's true, right? Especially and maybe the real question is a woman like that, if she's okay with that type of man, then maybe she wants a submissive man and she wants to lead and dominate her relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see, okay, that does work. If the
Mm-hmm.
man is like, listen, baby, take the lead.
Yeah.
Because there are men that are out there that are like that. So I could see it working like that, especially if the man is not, trying to, submit his power over you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could see it working like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe in building together, or should your partner come to the table with equal footing?
Both.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that because I think, once have started to like achieve and your partner is just continue to kind of fall behind, it does make it a lot harder because a lot of the burden is just kind of on you, right?
Yeah. I think what I imagine is just a partnership.
Right.
Like you're both making each other better. You're both helping each other accomplish goals. You're both helping each other live in your individual purpose here
Yeah.
on this earth. Ideally, obviously, and this is all hypothetical, but ideally, that would be the scenario is you both bring something to the table, Jesus, and then you can build off that. That obviously would be the goal in the ideal situation. Yeah. Because I think what makes me sad is just like the woman that like dedicates herself or her life to building someone up and then gets completely left with nothing.
Yeah, I mean that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think it's important, once you've started to have like a certain amount of money or, assets, things of that nature is kind of coming. I've like I was listening to someone a few years ago and I like the idea of like, okay, when it really comes down to especially marriage, it's like let's come to the table and let's lay it all out. Literally, what do you bring to the table as far as like your assets?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? What's the credit score like, of course,
Yeah.
stocks, bank accounts, things like that. Like literally let's lay it out and let's make sure that it's kind of fair game.
Mm-hmm.
Because if one of us have a lot more and we're bringing a lot more to the table, then it could be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm very big on that.
Yeah.
I think that's super important because, some of us do have things to lose when we're getting in relationships. And so it's important that when you're getting with someone else, it's kind of like, all right, this is mine, or is this yours? Or is it
Yeah.
ours? Because some things are just kind of like, this me. you can have that. So those are the real deep conversations you have to have, I think, with your partner.
Yeah.
Because some things are truly off limits, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Fair. Yeah. No, I think we touched all areas of this topic, I think.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. And like I said, like, feel free to send us ideas on topics to discuss. See y'all next week.